In the near future, former Marine John is transported to a level 6 maximum security prison. As the new inmates arrive, a holographic image of the warden greets them, declaring that society has no need for them and that they will remain imprisoned for the rest of their lives. Shortly after, John is brought before the warden, who reviews his file and notes that John murdered his commanding officer. He has already broken out of 2 level 5 institutions, and his DNA profile indicates a deep resistance to authority along with a violent disposition. The warden makes it clear that in this facility, John will receive no visits, phone privileges, or correspondence, and that any misconduct will result in severe punishment. Soon after, John is assaulted and tossed into a cell, where his cellmate offers him some bread he secretly smuggled inside. The warden overhears this while monitoring the surveillance cameras. Later that evening, John witnesses a man screaming as he's dragged away. His cellmate explains that the man is being sent to Absolom, an island reserved for those who break the rules. When the cellmate begins muttering incoherently, John is forced to silence him before the guards can overhear. The following morning, John wakes up to find his cellmate missing. Without warning, he's escorted to the judgment chamber, where the prisoners gather to watch. The warden announces that stockpiling food is a serious violation, punishable by 10 lashes. A rotating metal frame reveals John's cellmate, who is immediately shocked once with a taser by the warden. John is ordered to administer the remaining 9 shocks, but he refuses. In response, the warden threatens to execute the cellmate. Seizing the taser as a diversion, John attempts to take the warden hostage, but guards quickly surround him, leaving him no option but to endure another brutal beating. A few hours later, John is flown by helicopter to Absolom. The guards dump him onto the ground without a single word before the aircraft departs. Within moments, he finds himself swarmed by rats and hastily shakes them off while surveying his surroundings. He appears stranded in the heart of a dense jungle, with the sounds of wild animals echoing in the distance. John starts running, but halts when he spots figures moving between the trees. They belong to a faction known as the Outsiders, who swiftly encircle him, overpower him, and take him captive. John is brought to their settlement, where the inhabitants rush forward, attempting to strip him of his clothing. They are restrained by their leader, Marek, who asserts control with his firearm. John spends several hours locked in a cage before being summoned to meet Marek, who greets him warmly and sarcastically refers to the island as a vacation. The settlement turns out to be a decaying island resort, now in ruins, populated by hardened criminals sent there over the years. Since survival on the island demands physical strength, Marek insists that John prove his worth by fighting Ralph above the drained swimming pool. John is shoved onto a suspended net and handed a blade, while Ralph boasts by smashing a statue to display his power. Unimpressed, John casually throws the blade, striking Ralph in the chest. The impact causes Ralph to crush his groin against the platform before plunging into the water below. Pleased with the outcome, Marek approaches to congratulate him, but John suddenly disarms him and shoves him into the pool as well. He then forces his way through the crowd at gunpoint and attempts to fire, only to discover the weapon is useless. With no other option, he sprints back into the jungle as the Outsiders pursue him. After climbing a tree and waiting for the mob to disperse, John plants a spear into a tree trunk and observes as one of the men trips over it. He ambushes the man from behind, snaps his neck, and takes his weapons. Attempting to flee again, John accidentally tumbles down a hillside, injuring his leg in the process. While bandaging it, another outsider emerges from hiding and attacks him. John quickly overpowers and kills him, using the attacker's own spear. The commotion exposes his location, and another outsider gives chase. During the pursuit, John inadvertently triggers a trap. A massive swinging log crashes down, and he narrowly dodges it, allowing it to kill his pursuer instead. As he continues moving, Scab fires an arrow that pierces John's leg, yet he keeps running despite the pain. Eventually, the outsiders corner him at the edge of a cliff and shoot him with blowgun darts, causing him to collapse and fall into the water below. Miraculously, John survives the drop and is discovered by a different faction known as the Insiders, who bring him to their far more orderly and comfortable village. Back at the prison, news of this development quickly reaches the warden. When John regains consciousness, he is struck by the calm atmosphere and structured lifestyle maintained by the Insiders. As he explores the settlement, he attempts to enter a mysterious building, but Hawkins and Skull intercept him, explaining that the structure is strictly off-limits. Shortly afterward, John is presented to their leader, a man known simply as the Father. Father explains that John is the first man ever to break free from the outsiders, and he would like him to become part of the insiders. However, John makes it clear that his only goal is to escape the island entirely. Soon after, he meets Dysart, who is attempting to fix the malfunctioning gun. John suggests a few technical adjustments, and the two quickly connect over their shared expertise with firearms. Later, Dysart and Hawkins escort John to the village watchtower, where they try to persuade him to abandon any escape plans. The island itself is filled with natural hazards, and beyond that, the outsiders number around 600, while the insiders are only 98 strong, making open conflict impossible. Surveillance systems monitor the island constantly, meaning helicopters can be deployed within seconds. John later visits Tom, the healer, who applies a medicinal salve to his wounded leg and advises him to keep it clean to prevent infection, reminding him that proper medicine simply doesn't exist there. As John leaves, he realizes Casey has been following him. Casey admits he only wanted to meet the first man who managed to escape Marek.
John tells him to back off and walks to the edge of a cliff, tossing a wooden crate into the ocean. The powerful waves instantly smash it apart, proving that swimming away isn't an option. Casey joins him and warns that the surrounding waters are infested with sharks. That night, John notices a small procession transporting supplies toward the shoreline and quietly slips away to follow them. Hawkins catches him in the act and punches him, warning him to cooperate. John responds with a punch of his own before heading back to the village. The next morning, during breakfast, John questions Casey about his crime. Casey admits he assisted a mafia leader in kidnapping 2 children, though he claims he never intended for them to be harmed. It was his boss who ultimately murdered them. When a helicopter flies overhead, Casey explains that supply drops occur twice a month, but the outsiders always seize everything, leaving the insiders with nothing. Since the landing zone changes every time, planning ahead is impossible. After breakfast, John and Casey visit Killian, who oversees alcohol production. John takes a sip of the homemade liquor and nearly gags, openly mocking the drink. Offended, Killian swings at him, but John effortlessly dodges the punch. Suddenly, a bell rings, and all the insiders rush toward the gate. One of their guards has fallen asleep on duty for the second time, an offense viewed as putting everyone's lives at risk. The consequence is exile. John watches as the man is expelled and forced to wander alone into the jungle. Meanwhile, among the outsiders, chaos erupts over a few roasted rats, and Marek must intervene to restore order. When the crowd demands to know about the helicopter supplies, Marek promises to distribute them the following day if they behave. One man challenges Marek's authority, arguing that since John defeated him, John should be the new leader. Enraged, Marek responds by brutally decapitating the dissenter. He then tells Scab that the time has finally come to attack the insiders' village. On Christmas Day, the insiders hold a modest celebration, even managing to decorate a tree. Father delivers a heartfelt speech honoring those they have lost, and John reminds everyone to pray for the men who were banished as well. Although John intends to leave the next morning, Father doubts he will get far. Unbeknownst to them, the outsiders are concealed in the forest surrounding the village, preparing their assault. A spy informs the insiders, and the alarm is immediately sounded as everyone prepares for battle. Casey asks John to stand and fight beside him, but John initially refuses. However, minutes later, he surprises Casey by joining the defenders atop the wall. Back at the prison, the warden is notified about the impending clash and decides to let the two factions wipe each other out. On the island, several guards positioned on a bridge are suddenly dragged into the water by hidden outsiders. Flaming arrows are launched, killing one man instantly as an arrow pierces through his mouth. Hawkins orders his men to take cover, but the arrows strike the buildings instead, setting them ablaze. While some rush to fetch water, another man attempts to pull the flaming arrows from the rooftops, only to be shot down. The outsiders then secure large trees to the front gate and chop them down, using their fall to smash through the gate and destroy several towers. With the defenses broken, they storm the village, and a savage battle erupts as men fall on both sides. John demonstrates exceptional combat ability, cutting down enemies without hesitation. Casey freezes when an outsider nearly kills him, but John saves him by shooting the attacker with an arrow. Even Father joins the fight, wielding his staff, while Skull protects him with impressive martial arts techniques. Despite their efforts, Father is stabbed. Hawkins pulls the dagger free and orders Skull to escort Father to a secure tower. At the same time, Marek and Scab remain submerged in the water, secretly entering the village from behind after killing a guard. They slip into the very tower where Skull is taking Father, an act witnessed by John.
Acting quickly, John slices a rope, releasing a counterweight that allows him to reach the tower within seconds. Inside, Scab knocks Skull unconscious and sees his father by pressing into his wound. Marek begins to monologue before preparing to execute father, but John suddenly opens a trap door, causing Marek to fall to the lower level. Skull regains enough strength to shoot Scab with a flaming arrow.
A fierce duel follows between John and Marek, their abilities seemingly evenly matched. The fight is briefly interrupted by Scab, now engulfed in flames, but Marek shoves him out the window and into the sea. Realizing he may lose, Marek flees outside and commands his men to retreat, and the outsiders withdraw from the village. Soon after, the insiders burn the fallen bodies, and Father delivers a few solemn words in their memory. Watching the flames from a distance, John is haunted by memories of killing civilians during the war. Killian approaches him with a drink and reveals that Father was convicted for the suspicious overdose of his wife. However, there was never sufficient evidence, making him likely the only innocent man on the island. The following morning, John notices several insiders discreetly carrying supplies toward the shore and follows them. There, he is stunned to discover they have secretly constructed a boat. He rushes back to Father, who confirms that they had been planning an escape all along. Dysart designed the vessel with a cooling system intended to evade radar detection. Unfortunately, other sensors still detect the boat, and helicopters are immediately dispatched to destroy it. The helicopters also attempt to fire at the observers on shore, but the insiders quickly take cover behind rocks and avoid being hit. Afterward, Father concludes that the Warden must have an informant within their ranks. John insists on boarding the next boat, yet Hawkins and Father remind him that others have waited years for their chance, so he must take his turn like everyone else. Some time later, John visits Dysart, who is already constructing another boat. John asks whether Dysart plans to escape on this one, but he declines. Dysart confesses that 3 decades earlier he built a devastating bomb purely for profit, never caring about the ideology behind it. The explosion killed 50 people, and he believes exile on the island is the punishment he deserves. While looking around, John notices an old Chevy engine, though it lacks a distributor. John then approaches Father with a proposal. He will retrieve the missing engine component from Marek's camp, and in exchange, he and Casey will secure places on the next boat. Father agrees, but only if Marek is willing to expose the truth about the island to the outside world, so the remaining prisoners can also be rescued. As John prepares to leave, Hawkins hands him a map outlining the safest path to the outsiders' camp. Dysart supplies him with several Molotov cocktails. Casey insists on accompanying him, but John slams him against a tree and vividly describes the risks until Casey reluctantly agrees to stay behind. Meanwhile, Marek gathers his followers and announces that he has executed all rival gang leaders, dropping their severed heads at his feet as proof. He declares that he will tolerate no more internal disputes. Hours later, John reaches the outsiders' territory and is stunned to discover that Casey has secretly followed him. Suddenly, Casey triggers a trap and is left dangling from a tree. Before John can free him, the outsiders swarm in, capture him, and drag him to their village. The crowd mocks him while Marek taunts him and orders Casey to be restrained with shards of glass pressed against his neck. Using the chaos as cover, John infiltrates the camp and silently eliminates a guard near a staircase. After locating the distributor, he climbs into a tower with a rope and shoots down 2 additional guards. Looking out from above, he sees Casey being tortured. In response, he hurls a Molotov cocktail into a nearby building, causing a massive explosion. As the crowd scrambles to locate the intruder, John races to release Casey from the torture device. However, Marek anticipated the move and intercepts them. Both men are thrown into the empty pool, and Marek orders them to fight each other to the death, threatening to kill them both if they refuse. Casey pretends to attack John, drawing close enough to whisper that John must finish him because the insiders need John alive to escape. When John refuses to kill his friend, Casey deliberately impales himself on a spear. Furious, Marek prepares a guillotine to execute John, but an insider spy suddenly knocks him down. The spy urges John to return to the village and warn Father that Marek has united the gangs for a second assault. The following day, John arrives back at the insider settlement and delivers the distributor to Dysart, pressing him to hurry. He then alerts everyone about the impending attack and notices that Father is bedridden. Realizing they lack sufficient weapons and fortifications to survive another battle, John suggests abandoning the village. Hawkins objects angrily, insisting it is their home, but Father sides with John and orders preparations for evacuation. The next morning, as the villagers begin to relocate, John finds Father still lying in bed. Father reveals he is suffering from a fatal illness that will claim his life within a month without treatment. No one else knows, though Hawkins seems suspicious. Father asks John to assume leadership after he is gone, but John refuses, remaining determined to escape. Instead, Father gives him his journal containing the full truth about the island and asks John to deliver it to someone who can free the prisoners. Later, John checks on Dysart, who has completed the boat. During a test run, the sight of the flames triggers traumatic memories of John killing civilians, causing him to withdraw in distress. That night, he confesses to Father that his superior officer once ordered him to massacre hundreds of civilians during the war, and the government buried the evidence. When John tried to reveal the truth, no one listened, so he ultimately killed his commanding officer in revenge. The next morning, John discovers the insider spy's head mounted on a spike outside the village. As the warden watches through surveillance cameras, the outsiders emerge and storm the settlement, only to find it deserted. They celebrate prematurely, unaware that John is positioned atop a tower with the repaired gun. He opens fire, triggering a massive explosion that wipes out most of the attackers. The insiders then emerge from hiding, now outnumbering the remaining outsiders, who retreat in panic. As Father steps out to witness the aftermath, Marek suddenly appears and swiftly kills Skull. He engages John in another brutal fight, exchanging heavy blows before leaving John dangling from the tower's edge. Just as Marek prepares to finish him, Father intervenes from behind. Marek responds by stabbing Father fatally. John pulls himself back up and relentlessly beats Marek until he falls from the tower, landing on a spike below. Soon after, John notices flames rising from the shoreline. He and Hawkins rush to the beach, only to find Dysart dead and the boat engulfed in fire. In Dysart's hand is a necklace they instantly recognize as belonging to Tom, identifying him as the Warden's informant. They hurry to the healer's hut and discover Tom had been using a transmitter all along. The Warden had promised him freedom in exchange for his cooperation. Knowing a helicopter is en route to extract him, John forces Tom to alter the landing coordinates. Later, Tom stands alone in an open field as bait. When the helicopter touches down, the insiders ambush the soldiers and eliminate them. John storms aboard the chopper to prevent the Warden from escaping. After terrifying him, John kicks the Warden out, abandoning him alongside Tom. Taking control of the cockpit, John pilots the helicopter away with Killian and several other inmates on board. Meanwhile, deep in the jungle, Tom and the Warden find themselves surrounded by the outsiders.